Hello, I'm Jermaine Griggs, and I am so honored to be here with Virginia Fusteri Solers, who is the author of And Some Will Triumph, which are stories of the mentally ill in a correctional setting and the nurses who care for them. Virginia, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So you were a nurse for 26 years?
36 years. I've psychiatric nurse for 36 years, 26 within the correctional system.
Wow.
Yes.
And you've seen a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything, yes. Yes, amazing career, actually. It was quite fascinating.
Wow.
Before I got into the correctional system, I also worked acute psychiatric unit and a mobile unit back east. So, I had quite a lot of experience.
Right. And I remember you told me one of your colleagues looked at your fellow nurse and said, if people only knew what went on around here, someone should write a book.
Exactly. They go, no one will believe this. But yeah, so I always had it in the back of my mind that I would eventually write a book. Because, people, and here it is, finally. Yes.
Wow. And we're talking, a good 420 pages, and it details the stories. We're talking about, I remember you told me the lady who killed her kids.
Right.
How does someone do that?
Well, unfortunately, she was extremely depressed and had been for some time. Her husband was out of the country. And apparently her family was not following up on her. She was missing, family outings, and she was missing play dates with friends, with her children. Her children were young. And no one actually went to see what was going on with her. So she became more and more depressed until eventually she became a psychotic, which means she lost sight of reality. And she started hearing voices. And she was on an antidepressant at that time, which of course is not going to take care of the voices that she was hearing. And these voices apparently were telling her that her children were not safe, and that they were going to someone was going to hurt her children. And the only way that she could prevent that from happening was to kill them herself. And that's what she did.
Wow. And what was your relationship with her and some of the other patients? When did they have the time to tell you these stories, and how did you all interact?
Well, I mostly worked the triage desk, which means I took care of all the emergencies and all the people coming from court. But I also did some case management during the times, like I worked PM shift most of my career. And when they were having a bad time, we would go over and we would talk to them, sort of like a case management type of thing. And a lot of times they would talk about what was going on in their lives and how they were feeling. And so I remembered all this and I kept it in my mind. And when I wrote my book, I put it down on paper.
36 years, huh? So who did you write this book for?
It's a good read. It's for people who like to know about the jail system and how things work in there. It's the stories are interesting. They're all, though the book is fiction, it's all based on my experiences of my time in there. Anyone who's had a mental health, a person who has had in their family or friends who have had a mental health issue would find this book fascinating and interesting and informative, because I do explain the different conditions like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder and erotomania, where the person is stalking someone because of his, he believes that a person of higher, that's out of his class, more or less, is, was, in love with him. And so he was stalking this person who was actually in the self-help arena and famous in that arena. And he ended up hurting her. So it explains the, depression and the various disorders that the mentally ill face, and how they see themselves, so it gives insight into the mentally ill, what they're feeling, what they're going through, what their thoughts are. And also anyone who is an advocate for mental health, because the mental health system is so broken. First of all, the police officers and the sheriff's department really don't have a lot of background on dealing with the psychiatric inmates out in the field. I mean, they may go through Santa Ana has the highest, it gives the most course. They do a 40-hour course. But I'm not sure if that's mandatory or not. For the rest, they have a 16 to 18-hour course after they go through the academy, but a lot of them don't avail themselves of that. And while they're in the academy, they actually only get 4 hours of information. Wow. So what happens is they're dealing with these people out there, and it's difficult for them because, you can't be aggressive with these people most times. You have to be able to deal with a psychiatric patient. Now, they have people that come out and help them, like the PET team and stuff like that. The psychiatric emergency unit is available, but they only work like banker's hours. So unfortunately, they're not there for a lot of the time that the police officers need them. And what happens is because ETS, the Evaluation Treatment Services in Santa Ana, which is the emergency place that you bring these people, the mentally ill that you find on the street or at home or whatever that don't have insurance. Of course, they take Medi-Cal, but basically the ones that don't have insurance go there. They only have 10 beds. We only have 10 beds for emergencies. So what? And that's the same amount of beds that we've had for the past 30 years.
Wow, for all of the county.
For all of the county, full of Orange County, 10 beds. So you can imagine the frustration for the police officers who are now bringing these people to ETS who don't take patients or anyone that has any kind of medical issue, okay? And they bring them there and they don't want to take them. ETS doesn't want to take them.
Right, not our problem. Huh?
It's, they either don't have the beds or they, tell them to bring them to the hospital, and then the police officers or the sheriff's department have to bring them to the hospitals. And that's not their problem either. One of my friends, Shirlene Stepp, is, the supervisor of the emergency room at UCI, and she said her emergency room is just full of people with mental issues that the police officers bring in because ETS won't take them.
Wow. And you said something that the police have to stay with them. So instead of being out on the street,
out on the street, here they are with this mentally ill person.
Right, until they're able to be treated.
Right, which is such a waste. And then, of course, the best way to get to do it is to bring them to the jail, and that's what they do. So then we end up with these homeless people that are mentally ill, and there's so many of them out there, and they bring them to the jail because it's the easiest way, because we have to take them.
Right.
We have to take them. They get them for loitering or, anything, urinating out in public or, drunk in public, whatever they're doing, vandalism, stealing, because they need to steal food a lot of times. And, so we get them. And then when we get them, they may be a cite and release, which means they come into the system and they come into the system, they get processed, they get fingerprinted, and then they're given a court date. Now, okay, these people have no idea what day it is. They don't know what month it is. They may not even know what year it is. And so giving them a court date is ridiculous. So what happens the next time they're picked up? It's on a warrant. So now they stay in the system. And it's a revolving door. It's a waste of taxpayers' money, and it's just not fair to the mentally ill.
Wow. So advocates for the mentally ill.
Absolutely. Advocates for the mentally ill.
And I would imagine psychiatric nurses that want to work in the corrections facilities, right?
You know, actually the safest place I ever worked.
Really?
Because the guards or deputies or whatever pretty much take care of you. So if you have an inmate that you feel is paranoid or feel might hurt you, then you have them standing guard, you know, so while you're interviewing them. And as a matter of fact, they changed it most recently so that no matter who you interview, someone is there. Someone is there. Because as I mentioned in my book, that wasn't always the case, and people very occasionally get hurt, but it's very occasionally. I think it happened once in the entire time, my entire 26 years. So, you know, deputies get hurt more than, you know, more than the people who work there. The people that work there are very well taken care of by the correctional officers, for sure.
But after reading your book, would I want to work or would I run?
I don't know. It depends. I mean, it's fascinating work. It's really fascinating work. You're dealing, you know, you're dealing with criminals, you know, and some of them do come in on horrendous crimes like murdering someone, or I remember this one instance where we had this you know, family come in, actually the wife and husband, and I remember them. I just remember it so vividly in my mind, because they're sitting on the bench, you know, the triage bench, and they're laughing and they're under the influence. So I asked someone, well, why are they in? And apparently while they were using drugs, their kids, you know, were in the car getting eaten by rats, and eventually both kids did die. One was already dead when they came into the facility. The other one was taken to the hospital and died later on that night. But so you're dealing with, you know, child molesters. You're dealing sometimes with serial killers. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of horrendous things. So you have to be the type of person where you can distance yourself from the crime and still help the person. That's very important when you work in corrections, because these people need help, especially the mentally ill who commit horrendous crimes. I mean, they can commit a crime because they're paranoid or, you know, feel that others are going to hurt them, and so they strike out. And, you know, it's tragedy. It's really a tragedy. And so you have to really distance yourself from the crime and work with the person, which is very important when you work in corrections.
I hear you. There was a line, my grandpa, who used to be a preacher before he passed, he said, God looks beyond your faults and sees your needs. Do you feel a little bit of that?
Yeah, I do.
Because if you looked at the fault...
No, right. You couldn't. I mean, there were times it was hard, especially, and I bring that out in my book, especially with child molesters. I really had a, problem with that. And my daughter was a teenager at that time when this book was set. And thank you. And so you think, oh my God, what if this person did something to my child? And so it's hard to distance yourself from that. And I think it's hard for most of the nurses in the jail, and even the correctional officers to deal with those type of people. It's hard, and yet I'm sure God finds some goodness even in them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So Virginia, tell me, why did you write this book, and what makes it different from other books talking about the correctional institutions?
I wrote this book because I want people to understand how it is for the inmates and for the nurses who work with them. And so I think I give a lot of insight into how these people feel while they're in the jail. Like even one of my, of course I've changed the name, but this one girl, Emma, who came in, she was in her early 20s, and she was an alcoholic. I mean, she started drinking when she was really young, and she came from a good family. And she was, she had to eventually accept that she was going to spend 8 years in jail or prison She actually got 8 years for what she did because it was actually her third DUI, I think. I think her parents got her out of the first two, which didn't do her any good because, there she goes. And then she eventually killed someone. And when she first came in, she was so depressed. She actually lived in the past. She wasn't even dealing with where she was. I mean, she was in her bed at home and dating her boyfriend, and actually in her brain, she was there. She was not in the jail. And so it took her a long time to come to grips with what she did. But she eventually did, and I think for her it was a triumph because she said, I don't think, I would have ever given up the alcohol. She would never have given it up. And, to think that here I am in jail and still craving that alcohol, still craving it, even with all that happened.
Wow.
And she goes, I maybe I'll be able to do something good with my life when I get out. So for her, it was a triumph because she actually grew up. She actually changed her pattern of thinking.
Right.
And
so with Emma, was it only alcoholism or was there some mental illness?
Yeah, it was just alcoholism. She was an alcoholic.
Okay,
She
so
was
you
an
get those
alcoholic.
cases as well,
Oh,
not
yeah.
just fully
Yeah.
mentally
Well,
ill.
because she got so depressed when she came to the jail, she killed someone and she couldn't accept it. So she ended up,
Did that cause some sort of mental illness?
I
Like
don't
the
think so.
trauma
I
of
don't
that
think it was
situation?
actually mental illness, but yeah, she became very, very depressed. And who knows, maybe she was depressed. Maybe that's why she, maybe during her time in life, maybe that depression led her to alcohol. I don't really know, most of that, but.
And some will triumph. Can you think of any character here in your book that didn't triumph?
Yes, Zafua. Now she came from Egypt actually, but I have her coming from Africa, which is, as you told me, it's right
I'm
there.
sure Egypt is in Africa.
So anyway, I remember her. She was, this woman, and her husband was abusing her for many, many years. And what threw her for a loop was she had a cat whom she loved. And her husband threw that cat out in the desert while they were traveling through it. And she just knew she was going to be next. So she ended up getting poisons together, and she ended up, giving him the poison and then cutting him up in little pieces and giving pieces of him to neighbors. So, but she actually did very well in the jail system. After a while, she wasn't even on medication. I mean, she helped other people while they were in jail, and she was just so good to them, and telling them that she was very religious, and she made God help others, so others felt comforted by her being there. So not only did she triumph in her own way, but she made others triumph.
God and mental illness. What part does God play?
Oh, God plays a big part in mental illness. I mean, when for the nurses, I think when you look at what some of these people have done, you pray that their victims are with God. You pray that that's where they are, that they're safe in his arms and, now living, a beautiful life because they didn't get a chance to live it here. And also, a lot of inmates do find God while they're in the jail. They do have religious services and stuff in the jail. So, a lot of them do take comfort in God that, maybe they can change their lives through God. So I think God plays a big part in the jail system.
Why do you think that is? Time to reflect,
Time to
slow
reflect,
down?
time to sometimes you just got to believe in a higher power, to get through a day. That maybe what you did was not your fault, and maybe even if it was your fault, that you can change. And that God can help you with that.
Wow. Well, on a more cheery note, I remember reading a passage here. I think it was like your first few days.
My God. First of all, me becoming a nurse this is something I never wanted to do, but I wanted to get into psychology, but I didn't want to get my master's and PhD. This was getting in the back door, becoming a psychiatric nurse.
Sure.
So nursing, to me, nursing school was horrendous. I hated nursing school. I hated anything medical. I hated the sight of blood. So it was the hardest thing I ever got through. But I understand the part you're talking about. Yes, we went to this old age home, and the poor people there, I mean, it was really a horrible place because they had them in baskets, like grocery store baskets, outside of their rooms, and half of them had contractures where they weren't moved enough so that their body kind of, was in a permanent fixture, like their legs and everything. And, they never got fresh air because there was so few nurses there to take care of so many people. So who knows whose fault it was, but that's just the way it was. So I decided, okay, you're going out. So there I was with my stupid little hat that looked like an upside down coffee filter on my head and my nurse's uniform, and I put her in a wheelchair and took her outside. And we were on a big mountain, okay? So big, long hill. And being a terrible nursing student, I forgot to lock the wheelchair. So my hat flew off. I go to get the hat, and down she goes, all the way down this long hill, and flies into the bushes. Oh, yeah. And I thought, oh my God, that's the end of my nursing career. Wow. Then I'm thinking, why am I thinking that? This poor woman, here she is in the bushes, and it's my fault. So I go racing down after her. And as I said, I explained to her as we went back up into the place, into the facility, medical nursing is just not for me.
You're taking the leaves out of her mouth, are you?
Take twigs out of her hair and leaves out of her hair. I mean, thank God she didn't get hurt. I prayed. I mean, as I said in my book, I prayed each day that I didn't kill someone.
Well, they didn't kill you later on.
They killed me later on.
Wow. Virginia, anything else you want to mention?
Yes, I think that in Orange County, as a matter of fact, all through the country, there's a big need for institutions for the mentally ill. I think I know the politicians know this, that it's a broken system throughout the country. I mean, we are not giving a fair shake to the mentally ill. We are not dealing with their issues or their problems. I mean, most of the institutions went down in the 60s and then again in the 80s. And so all these people are out on the streets, and it's so unfair. It's unfair to everyone. I know Senator Morlock did start some PES units, which are psychiatric emergency units in Northern and Central California, but still we only have 10 beds here. What's his name? Dr. Zella in Alameda County opened a huge PES unit, and even though they have a lot, I think we have like 3 million in Orange County, and they have a lot less in Alameda County, and he is doing wonders with his new unit. I mean, there's really a big decrease in the mentally ill just being left out there on their own, and I think we could emulate what he's doing here in Orange County.
What do you think it's going to take for these advancements to be recognized nationally?
Every time it comes up, where people vote on it, it seems like it's always put under the carpet or something. It's like no one wants to deal with the mentally ill, but they're here. And a society is only good as its weakest person, and we need to band together and help these people.
I mean, one day you'll write your sequel.
I am.
And
I'm
all
in the middle
will triumph.
Yes, I'm in the middle of writing my new book now.
Wow. Well, for this book, where can folks find it?
Okay, you can actually find it on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. But all the reviews, seems everybody got it on Amazon.com. So the reviews are there if you want to take a look at it.
Sure.
And I really hope you do get my book. It's fascinating stories. The story. I mean, I put my heart and soul into this book. You know, I am such a feel that for these people, you know, that have so many problems in their life, and I really feel that we can help them.
Absolutely. And some will triumph. Stories of the mentally ill in a correctional setting and the nurses who care for them, by Virginia Frusteri-Salers. Thank you guys for joining us. And do head over to Amazon.com to pick up her book. Virginia, thank you for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.